Hello and welcome to Insight. I'm Kusum Wijetilleke. Today I'll be speaking to Indi, a writer and co-founder of several websites, including those of corporates and think tanks. Thank you for being here, Indi. We appreciate it.
Hi Kusum, thanks for having me.
So, you draw heavily as a writer from your experience growing up in America. You also studied in Canada. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up in the United States and what kind of culture you sort of found yourself in?
So I'd say I technically grew up in Columbus, Ohio, but really I grew up in a suburb called Upper Arlington, which I love very much, and shout out to everybody in Upper Arlington. But what I really didn't, I kind of knew at the time, but Upper Arlington was actually a very segregated suburb within Columbus. So black people and Jews weren't really allowed to buy houses there until the 70s or 80s. It was written, I think it's still written into some of the deeds that they couldn't, be in homes or be in Upper Arlington except as servants. And if you look at a map of Columbus now, it's actually pretty clearly divided along a highway that runs through the middle of the city. So all the black people are on one side, and they have helicopters flying over them all the time. And then like white people, and then Asians are allowed in to these other communities, which are Upper Arlington, Bexley, the suburban communities. So when I grew up, I had exactly one black friend, Ray. They even gave us one homework assignment, which was trace your ancestors back to Europe, okay, which obviously me and Ray couldn't do. So my dad had me, or Tata had me, trace our relatives who'd moved abroad and people who'd gone to Europe, so diaspora. And then for Ray, I did the homework for him. I just made something up.
Okay, but did you have an idea of being sort of outside a home culture? Because you went there when you were quite young, weren't you? So did you sort of feel I'm in an American culture, or was that just the only culture you sort of knew growing up?
So I didn't really have a sense that I was particularly different because I'd been there from the beginning. So I didn't really have a sense that I was different until I moved out of Ohio and I went to study in Montreal. Okay. And then people would ask me where I was from, and I would say, I'm from Ohio. And then they'd be like, no, where are you really from? And then I really had to start thinking about it. But I didn't really think about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of us get when we go abroad is where you're from, and then you give them the answer, and then they sort of think, where is that? Did you get a lot of that when you eventually started saying Sri Lanka to people? It was there. It must have just been a blank face, basically, right?
So I had to start learning about that culture and my culture, and I think that's a phenomenon for all of us. Everything from language to food to our history, we have to sort of reconstruct.
And when you came back to Sri Lanka, did you find quite an adjustment, having grown up in the US?
I think Sri Lanka's, I don't know, it's weird. It's like home, it's always welcoming. I don't know. I guess it's a bit of adjustment. I think, so it took me a while to make friends, I would say. Okay. So my cousin introduced me to some of his friends, and that took a year and so on. But then once you're in a network, I think it's very...
Okay.